Sri Lanka is currently in a state of chaos after the country's president was forced to flee following a massive uprising. Sri Lankans are demanding changes after government corruption and mismanagement led to bankruptcy and record inflation, meaning citizens can no longer afford food, fuel or medicine. But our favourite anti-China forces are at it again, trying to gain traction for their latest propaganda point, that the island nation is in chaos because of Chinese debt trap diplomacy. Let's get reporting. Hello, 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博然。Hey you guys, welcome back to Reports on China. I'm Andy. The island nation of Sri Lanka, located near the southeastern point of India and home to some 22 million, is currently in a state of chaos. A roughly 3-month movement demanding President Rajapaksa step down over widespread corruption, abuses of power, nepotism and financial mismanagement, which has led to record inflation of nearly 55%, came to a head recently when tens of thousands stormed the president's residence and offices. Rajapaksa escaped the country on a military jet and headed for the Maldives, but has not yet officially resigned, despite promising to do so, leading to further rising tensions. Sri Lankans are blaming their government for the current situation, especially the Rajapaksa Dynasty, a family that has controlled the country and its finances for nearly 2 decades. The family were popular for ending the crippling 3-decade-long civil war that enveloped the island after Mahinda Rajapaksa, the elder brother of the current president, took power in 2004, which led many in the country to view the family as war heroes. Things soon went south, with many suggesting the family had no respect for the rule of law, often making unwise and brash decisions against the advice of professionals. Like when the current president decided the country needed to go organic, literally overnight, banning the import of chemical fertilizers. This led to massive losses of crops and income. But you've probably heard, especially if you follow Western media, that Sri Lanka's current issues largely stem from debt trap diplomacy, a propaganda term created by the US to scare developing countries from working with China, and especially China's hugely successful Belt and Road Initiative, which is already partnering with nearly 150 countries to ensure development and shared prosperity. As just one example, China's Belt and Road Initiative helped to build the first ever high-speed railway in Laos, a country that holds the dubious title of most bombed country in the world, after the US relentlessly dropped 270 million bombs on the country, literally crippling it. Western media is trying to suggest that China's lending of money to Sri Lanka has crippled the country's economy. You won't be surprised then when I tell you that this is absolutely bull. Sri Lanka currently owes around US $50 billion, only 10% of which is to China. As illustrated here by DW News, another 10% of Sri Lanka's debt is owned by Japan, 9% by the World Bank, 13% by the Asian Development Bank, and a whopping 47% is market borrowing. So why would the US want to spread this debt trap diplomacy lie? Well, basically it comes down to the fact that China is building relationships with nearly 150 countries based on shared development, prosperity and win-win cooperation by funding projects like infrastructure, which not only help those countries domestically, but also connects them to global trade. That Laos railway I was talking about, for example, connects the Southeast Asian country by high-speed rail to China and is planned to reach all the way to Thailand. This will be hugely beneficial, especially in terms of tourism dollars. If it weren't for the current COVID situation, tourists would already be streaming into the country via the railway. Laos is actually a really good example of how China deals with other countries versus how the US deals with other countries. And it really is this simple. America's legacy with Laos is 270 million dropped bombs and 50,000 people dead, mostly civilians, not to mention the fact that the country is still littered with unexploded devices that cripple the country to this day. China's legacy with Laos is giving the country its first high-speed railway, as well as many other projects aimed at improving the country, the region, and the world. One more example. The US's legacy with Iraq is a massive military invasion, leaving upwards of 1 million dead and a region in ruins, while China has just signed on to build 1,000 schools in the country. What the US and so-called international world order is afraid of the world knowing is how China is developing peacefully without invading or damaging a single country on the way. China has lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty, and it didn't have to bomb and destroy a single city, let alone numerous entire countries, in order to do so. The US, on the other hand, well, the evidence is all there, but the average person is not yet in a position to connect the dots. The difference in international relations between China and other countries and the US and other countries is really black and white. China seeks peaceful win-win cooperation and to be left alone in its own governance, while the US seeks to threaten, attack and destroy, and then to implant its own political systems in order to ensure its own survival and its position at the top of the global order. Just think, if the average American started to realize the reality of the situation and question their own systems and how they affect the world, the country would simply collapse. And that, my friends, is why the US is continuously spreading lies about China, with this debt trap diplomacy myth being just one of many. They don't care about the people of Sri Lanka, but they're happy to use their misery now as a way to keep lying about China and calling it the bad guy. So what do you guys think? Did you know that only 10% of Sri Lanka's debt was owned by China? Let me know what you think down below, and of course, I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.